Hey everyone, I want to talk about my experience with ADHD, kind of where my diagnosis came from, the myths that I see that affect many people from an identification problem, why ADHD more than likely is not as problematic in our society as people think, but we're so hyper-focused on this era of diagnosis and labeling people and badging it, and then wearing it like a badge of honor. You go to people's bios, neurodivergent, ADHD, OCD, and that creates a subconscious, misunderstood fear pattern, which then brings behavioral actions such as avoidance, and why that has no effect over me, and why I don't even think about having ADHD. And we love to joke about it, right? Because I had energy all day long. And I was diagnosed at a very young age. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this video. I hope that this video finds many people who struggle with this, because this is often misunderstood at such a scientific level that people spend their whole lives living in boxes because of the fear of burnout, having ADHD overstimulation, which I don't believe in or put any merit in. Even if it is true, I don't think it's as problematic. Your fear of it being problematic is much more problematic, and why that can dictate your symptoms and your experience, especially if you have OCD. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this video. This is an extremely important topic. So I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think at the age of 10 to 12. And it was at Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, I believe. And my mom's favorite thing to say is, when the doctor came back, the neurologist, they said, and I quote, "Your son has one of the worst cases of ADHD I've ever seen." But it's a very unique thing, because when I was at my sister's wedding in November of this year, there was a couple there that were my neighbors, 3 houses down in my neighborhood I grew up with, who have known my parents, since I was 1 when I moved into the neighborhood. And their son, who I believe is an engineer, tutored me, which I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. And I remember at the wedding, the father told me a story I'd never heard before, and they wanted me to get tutored and all sorts of stuff. And he said, it was funny because when my son came home, he said, Nicholas is not what his parents think. And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, the kid can't sit still for shit. But when he is focused, he's extremely smart. And I don't mean that in a cocky way. It just means that one of the benefits, extreme benefits, in my opinion, of having ADHD, the learning lessons from it, is hyperfixation, which can be a problem when you have OCD with poor beliefs. But as you change your belief systems, I would say it's very easy for me to go all in on something, more so than just having OCD with the obsessiveness, going all in with rumination or all in with compulsive behaviors. I mean, if I'm focused on a task, I will do that all day, every day, without question, whether it hinders my life or not. That's not the best option, but it is an option. I can accept that about myself. So there's a lot of books and things I've seen on ADHD, most things which I don't agree with, because it's easy to think you understand OCD and ADHD, but specifically ADHD, without having it, seeing it as a hindrance. Was on the phone with someone recently. The individual was talking about ADHD burnout. I'm so used to saying OCD, but ADHD burnout, which they need to recharge. I don't believe in that for a second. Recharging is directly correlated with low frustration tolerance. We're living in a time, a very privileged time, many of us, where we have the ability to recharge. That's not saying that recharging doesn't have benefits, because I live my life very stoically, being out in nature, hiking, but it's not a necessity. This is the problem when you hear big channels on Stoicism talk about the necessity of recharging. If recharging was a necessity, if you didn't recharge, you would turn to a ball of flame and die. And not being able to recharge doesn't negate and necessitate automatic depression and anxiety. That's also not true. It's very hard to understand this from our type of thinking patterns without a good understanding of Albert Ellis's book, which is the original CBT. Because remember, most CBT today is completely watered down. It comes down to beliefs, whether it's real or not, behaviors, whether it's real or not, or it's harder for you. Take me for an example, right? What do I know about myself? Much more likely to go 0 to 100 than most people. Does that matter? No. Being aware of it. If I fall back into that, I can accept it. But when you go to the burnout myths, because burnout is real, but it's only basically 2% real, arbitrarily using a 2% compared to what society thinks. I follow a couple pages called Revived History, Historical Data, and I was reading something the other day about, again, I wouldn't agree with this, but perspective, about shellers, girls that would start work at 4:30 in the morning and work 10-hour shift getting seashells in the harbor and clams. And I believe it was North Carolina. It was a picture of them from 1905. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's child abuse and that's a different age and stuff like that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that idea of burnout is more than likely a privileged belief. And that's not saying your experience of it isn't real, because I've certainly felt tired, overwhelmed, but there's something about the term burnout itself that is almost wishy-washy. And people say, well, you're invalidating my experience. I said, no. I know you're experiencing that because I had that, all the OCD stuff, not wanting to get out of my bed. But it's just not as real as we think. And your belief system will dictate extreme increases in symptoms, experiences of symptoms where you're guaranteed that that is just your ADHD. So if we have two people, okay? So person one, both these people, by the way, have ADHD. So they both have ADHD. So person one has a belief of, we'll put conditional life, CL. My life sucks because of ADHD. Okay? The second person has a belief, which is unconditional life acceptance. So first person is conditional life acceptance. Second person is, my life is hindered, but I can still choose to accept it long term and be happy with it. Okay? Right there. My unusual crappy handwriting as I'm trying to do it. The person one with the conditional life acceptance, my life sucks because of ADHD, their perception, their burnout, their concentration because of their fears of, oh my gosh, I'm not concentrated, this is the worst thing ever, will be so high that the symptom experience will seem tenfold to that person. That's very difficult to understand unless you've actually broken down your beliefs and around it. Because I was petrified of having ADHD. Petrified of having ADHD. Because of what it would do to my life, because it would hinder me in many ways, and I wasn't going to be able to live my life. I wasn't going to be able to concentrate. But I don't even think about my ADHD at all. Like, I don't think about it whatsoever. I know it's there. I know it's a brain, if you want to call it a brain abnormality. But what is a brain abnormality? We just categorize these things. Just because someone has OCD doesn't mean, let me throw a weird statistic at you. What if OCD was actually the better normality brain and normal brains were not? We just labeled it that. We didn't label it the way we label it now. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. These are all discussions that benefit from open-mindedness and seeing things from multiple angles. So, like when you look at the big Stoic channels out there, which I love and have read many books. Ryan Holiday, for an example, I'm reading the Courage book right now. I've read Discipline is the Way. I have Ego is the Enemy I'm going to read. But there's a lot of principles about the recharging that say he talks about that ADHD people will lock onto that I don't think is applicable or beneficial for your life. And it fuels a low frustration tolerance for many people. That doesn't mean you can't recharge and that you can't want to step back and spend time in nature. It just means that you actually don't need those things in the way you think you do. That's the biggest problem. The problem isn't, I benefit from recharging, I like to be alone. The problem is, I must recharge, I must not touch my phone for an hour in the morning, I must not do this, I must not do that. And that creates extra annoyance. I'll use an example. I must not be bothered at the gym by small talk. Because I have to be in my own head and get this 2 hours that's my time out of my head. It's not the way the world works. People don't have to respect me from that. If that's what I want, buy a home gym. That's also avoidance in many ways for many people. Again, these are just things to make you think. You're thinking, oh, I have a home gym and that's not avoidance. I'm just making you think about your thinking. I had a phone call right before this where I said, guy was from India. I said, how many people, if I came to India, why do I believe in the religion I subscribe to in India? Hear people's responses. Culture, that's what my parents do. But I'm like, no, but why do you believe in that? A lot of people are stumped. Most people do not know how to think about their thinking. And if they do, they're spending, I would say I was an overly aware human before I had OCD. But now the blessings of the experience of OCD and ADHD has brought me to a whole nother realm of thinking, because it would have been that or I was going to kill myself at the time. I wouldn't kill myself if I had a relapse now, but I wanted to kill myself because I was suffering immensely 24/7. Because remember, before the last 20 years, OCD was rated by the World Health Organization as the top 6 worst diseases to have on earth, next to ALS and severe neurodegenerative disorders. Hearing that is very scary, but now we know you can learn from that. Now we know you can learn from ADHD and the principles by applying. Just because no one talks about applying unconditional acceptance to ADHD doesn't mean it's not applicable. And then people say, well, ADHD is real. Yes, it's very much real. There is some sort of structural abnormality with the impulse centers and everything that we talk about. Do you have to understand neuroanatomy and neurobiology and neurophysiology? Not a chance. No, you don't have to know any of that. All you have to know is who you are, which you'll never know for sure. But me, prone to addictive behaviors, prone to impulse, prone to not taking my time. I think taking my time might be a little bit more difficult than, say, Erica, biologically, structurally in my brain, but that doesn't mean I can't improve on that. I might not have the life I want. That's okay. So these are all the myths surrounding ADHD. And also, be very aware that how you wear it. This is a problem, okay? Like I always say. If you do this, and you put that ADHD badge of honor on with your OCD one here, you've already set yourself up for potential problems. I'm going to walk outside with that. I'm going to go to my appointments today with that on. You're going to be like, what's that? I have ADHD. Cater to me. But it sounds funny, but we do this. And that's what people do. They go, well, I have ADHD. It's like 25 years ago, if you had a peanut allergy in school, no one gave a shit. You just sat by yourself. And I'm not saying it's not beneficial to be aware of allergies in food, but now it's like, if we have a peanut allergy, the whole school's got to cater towards us. That's a big, big problem, because that's not how the way the world works. You might think it works that way right now, but it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. So we got to be careful about this, okay? I'm nothing but a human being who's alive, who has some sort of consciousness of who he thinks he is. But do I really know that? No, and everything else is up to interpretation for the most part. So be aware of that. It's not that we're saying that ADHD is not real. We're talking about the beliefs that you hold on your ADHD, which can certainly increase your symptoms. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think. I'm excited to engage with people in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. I'm always down for a good conversation. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching. Webinars, 8:30 p.m. UK time on Tuesdays. Hope to hear from you soon. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.